Hey everybody, my name is Amelia. Thanks for having me out here today, Amy. I really appreciate it. Today, as you can see in the presentation, I'll be talking kind of about how coaching young female athletes has evolved. Of course, as we start most presentations, you kind of want to learn about the person. So kind of a little bit about me. As I said, my name is Amelia. Just a couple photos of me. I grew up, I was born in Hong Kong. I grew up in Winnipeg, actually, for the first about 8 years of my life. Then I moved to Vancouver. Before I moved to Vancouver, I only played soccer at recess. Being an immigration family, we didn't join as many sports as we wanted to because my mom didn't speak the language and it was hard to navigate. But and she also thought that playing sports as a young female, we would have to play with boys, and therefore at that time it was a big no-go. So when we moved to Vancouver, we took a leap, and I started playing on a team, and so that was great. That has been my life for as long as I can remember, and it's given me a lot of opportunities to learn and grow and become kind of who I am today. Yes, I love dogs. That is my family dog that unfortunately passed away. But any dog is basically, I will talk to the dog first before I talk to the person. That's kind of who I am. As I go along, anyways, I finished my youth career here in BC, and then I took a scholarship down in south, very close, down in just Washington, for a year, playing at junior college. Fortunately, schooling wasn't as great as I thought I wanted it to go, so I came back up after a year, went to a college here, played there, finished my career at SFU, and finished my first degree there as well. After that, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, so I worked as a kinesiologist for about a year before I decided time to go on to the next step. That was also when I started coaching a lot more with different clubs, more high performance youth. At that time, I was kind of more as technical staff, helping out academies. I was a goalkeeper coach more than I was an assistant coach, as that was my position. And then I decided, okay, it's time to upgrade the education, and I was this close to moving to Calgary. Everything was set up for me to move to Calgary. I had my transcripts in, I had my applications in, and probably I would say the month before, school didn't come back with all the things that I wanted, and Camosun in Victoria offered me a spot in their athletic therapy program, and I packed up my stuff and left to Victoria. 4 years later, I have now my second degree, which is in athletic therapy. So I'm also a certified athletic therapist as well as a registered kinesiologist. But really, over the last 6 years, my coaching career has kind of soared in a way that I didn't think it would. And I have recently really chosen to kind of focus on that. And even over the last 2.5 years, I've really focused on kind of mentoring more young female athletes, referees, coaches, basically anybody who wants to learn and be more involved in sport and as a female. Everything that I'm about to tell you, I would say 80% of my presentation is kind of going to be based on my experience. And I'm sure that yours will probably be different than mine. I'm always open for discussion, but yeah, here we go. So as we go along, the coaching styles that I was taught when I was going through my coaching courses, and even now when I'm taking a more of what we call a youth license with the Canadian soccer, these are the methodologies that we kind of go through. There's command, there's Q&A, guided discovery, observation and feedback, trial and error. I think command is pretty self-explanatory. Do as I say, right? The coach gives a certain command, player follows. Q&A and guided discovery is the two that I've been kind of using a lot more over the last couple of years with myself and with my players. But I like the question and answer. A guided discovery is kind of you give a player a question, and you kind of guide the player towards a prompting answer. You want them to lead to something that you're thinking in your head. Observation and feedback, both you and the player are watching, and then you provide feedback and kind of discuss that after. Trial and error, kind of, challenge is imposed on the player, and they're trying to find a solution with minimal support. But as I mentioned, my style has grew over the years, especially over the last 6 years, from what I was experiencing as a youth to what I was taught as a coach, to now where Q&A and guide discovery are very much my top two is what I use with my athletes. So keeping those coaching styles and in mind. So as I was going through my playing career, a lot of it was command. I would say approximately my 80% of how I was coached was a command. There was about 20% where we were kind of given a little free rein to try things, but the margin for error was minimal. And that's how we learned. We were told what to do, and we were supposed to do it. We were supposed to reproduce and keep going and be successful. And then when something didn't go right, it was something that we did, whether it was a technical error that we didn't understand, or we didn't understand something tactically. We had to find a way to make it work based on what was being told. So we were never told the why. Something like, for example, we need to pass the ball from central space to wide space. That was what we did. We were told to do that from central space to wide space, or don't ever pass the ball up the middle. And if we did, and even if whether we were successful, or and then there were times that we were unsuccessful, the focus was the times that we were unsuccessful. So there was no reason like, why do we pass the ball up wide, and why do we not pass the ball up the middle right now? So that was kind of the way it was. You didn't really question it. And growing after I finished my playing career as a coach, when I went through my first couple of coaching courses, that was also the vibe that I got. And especially at the time that I was taking my first couple of coaching courses, I was young. I was probably one of two females, and a lot of my colleagues that now I have spoken to, and we talk about this, is it was the same thing for them too. Very, very minimal females in those coaching courses, very, very male dominant. The instructors was very much, here are the principles, this is the way to do it, and this is the vibe that we got was, this is the only way to do it. So do it this way, these steps, and that's how you move on. And so between being a player, being told what to do in a command style, to learning how to be a coach at the beginning of my career, there was no difference in how I was being coached to be a player or be a coach. And it was, you didn't question it. And now, as I go through my own coaching styles, I've been mentored by multiple different coaches, things have for sure changed. And how they've changed, I will kind of get through that. So I'm sure many sports have this model as well, the four-corner model, which identifies kind of the four major aspects of sport for a player: the physical, the technical, tactical, the psychological, and the social. Now, when you're coaching females, well, when I've been coaching females, the big part of my experience over the last couple of years has been connecting young females socially. I work specifically with a younger age group, usually the U9 all the way to about 13, 14. And the biggest thing for them that I have to connect is the social aspect, because they come on, they're meeting new friends, and that's what they enjoy doing. I find over the years, the psychological aspects of young females tends to be aim to please. They want to do right by you. by the coach, whoever the coach may be, or the maybe the authority figure standing on the sideline, a parent. And it's interesting that how we as a coach approach that with our coaching methodology affects their development. And I've learned over the years that I've strayed away from the command, because you don't want them to just do what you tell them to do. They don't grow as a player tactically and as a person to think for themselves. I see it on the field all the time. A coach who only uses command style, you see that player go through the U13, 14, 15, 16, and at 14 and 15, you see them on the field, and you see them look at the sideline because they're looking for instruction, they're looking for the next step. And that's when I wonder, have they learned or given the opportunity to kind of think for what to do for themselves? Anyways, going back to this 4-corner model, sorry, I will always try to trail off sometimes, so I have to catch myself. But the back to the 4-corner model, none of these aspects of this 4-corner model is individual. They all kind of intertwine. Hence the diagram that I kind of created is every player requires something different. Some player might require something more physical attributes that they need to work on, and they're really good socially. They're very strong psychologically, technically, tactically, they're on the ball. But they might need more. They may be a smaller player, so they have to work on how to physically be involved. Some players are super shy. They're not as social, so that portion of it might be smaller. But they all intertwine, and they're all different in terms of size and proportion to each player. And we need to make sure that each of them interact so that they can grow up to be and learn to be all of those aspects being balanced as a player. I'm sure many sports other than soccer has this long game, the long-term player development model. Like, I have no doubt about it. Every national organization looks towards long-term player development and kind of have their own way of developing players and kind of growing from, U5, U6, all the way to when they graduate to U18, hoping they continue to play women's and men's, and then stay in the game or stay healthy. Now, what I've found over the years with young females is they tend to drop off at 2 points. So I've got the 1 point here, usually at U12, U13. So in soccer, at U13, these days is when we kind of choose our high performance team. And we start going into the division, like the U11, so 11 aside, and they play full field, and they get chosen for their Division 1 or what we call metro teams. And they also get chosen for their high performance youth, under the BC Premier Soccer League. That's when we see our first drop off, because either players don't get chosen, or the players that were playing with their friends in Division 3 that were playing in-house now have to travel at U13 at 11 side. They don't want to play anymore. They have other focuses. It's kind of the age where they are teenagers and they're trying to figure themselves out. Second part that we see the drop off is at U14, 15. 15, 16 usually is the main one for soccer, at least in our club, because they're focused on other things. They find other things that they enjoy. And we want to try to keep all of them in as much as possible, but the reality is we have that drop off based on just interest and other commitments. For me, this is not a bad thing unless they drop off and they don't do anything. As a soccer coach, I want them to play soccer. I want them to stay in the game. As a health advocator for longevity and want them to stay healthy, want young females to stay active. This first drop off, if they find a different sport or they want to play a different sport, whether it's hockey or basketball or volleyball or swimming or track or gymnastics, if they stay active and they stay in some sort of activity that they enjoy, that going up again, fantastic. And that goes for the same with at the second drop off. You lose interest because you've got other priorities. People are, a lot of young athletes, female or male, are focusing on school because they're about to get, maybe looking for university applications. For as long, if they drop off out of soccer, right, as long as they pick something up, whatever that may be, I think that's a win. As a soccer coach, as I said, I would love them to keep playing soccer, but sometimes that's not the reality, and that's okay. Now, continue looking at the long term. Going back to kind of talking about females now, have we, from when we first started, from when I first started coaching, it was a command style. It was do as I say, do this. That's why how to get this. And when we make errors, we have to fix the first instruction that I've provided you. How do we perfect your first touch? And it's not because of what I told you was wrong. It's because your first touch is wrong, or your decision making was wrong. Now we've kind of grown, or I've grown, and to see how do we guide them to think. So that's, for me, like when I give an instruction on, okay, I want you to play the ball from central to wide. Why do you think I want you to do that? That why part was never really provided for me when I was playing. That leads to the second point, the patience for understanding. When you're learning something new, it takes time to understand why am I doing this, how to do this for the first part, to master the skill and understand the why. Those are the two things that I find really helped see the players that I've worked with over the last 6 or 7 years grow into better players. And we were never provided that, or at least I was never provided that. I was just told what to do. And now, when I coach my coaches, when I coach my young coaches, or even my parent coaches who work with my young teams, I always tell them, give them a coaching point, but give them time to make mistakes. You're going to see them receive the ball, and if you want them to play it out wide, you're going to see an 11-year-old take their first touch and stop and look, and then they're going to play the ball. It's slow because they're trying to first take the time to work on the technical part. Then they have to remember the instruction that they got to play it out wide. And so they have to get the habit of looking over there. Then they get to the point of playing the ball there. A lot of coaches tend to step in right away because the player in the first, I would say, 3 or 4 trials, and even the first couple of years, may not get to the receive, touch, play out wide. A defender usually closes them down by the time they look up and look to the side. And coaches are like, hey, you got to play faster, you got to play faster. Well, that will get there in the long game, in the long term. What we want them to see is, are they looking to play out wide? If they're looking, the technical will follow the tactical and the psychological part of it. And I find that we don't provide enough patience and time for the players to understand and learn how to play the game that we want them to play. And I'm not saying the way me playing out wide is the way to play. For different sports, it could be something else. But we do have to provide them the time and the patience to learn. And providing them the why will give them the idea of like, okay, so when they see that, they're not just playing it for the sake of receiving and playing. There's a player open, there's a defender there, and the defender hasn't moved. And therefore, I can play the ball out there. And for me at least, learning how to coach, if I understood why am I doing this the way the instructor is telling me to do this, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And I'm finding that teaching my coaches, when I'm coaching mentoring my coaches to coach the younger kids, I have to constantly remind them, I get that you want to jump in, but if you've given them the why and you understand the why, then it's a matter of time where they understand how to play the game or how to perform this activity the way you envisioned it to be. If you cut them off too early, you don't give them the time and patience. I think going to the next point, the four corners and longevity. I think I mentioned this. Four corners is important, but four corners of the social, psychological, tactical, technical, and then the physical. All of those kind of come together, but I like to add the longevity in because at the end of the day, we want to see them keep going. And if we can provide, in my experience, is right now the why, the patience, and the time for young females to think for themselves, to understand why they're doing what they're doing, to enjoy what they're doing, and grow in those four corners, the longevity will come. And we want to, at the young age, we want to reinforce how they view themselves. Something that I always tell my players, especially like 9, 10, 11, I'm teaching them a new skill. The big words that I hear from them is, oh, I can't do that. I can't use my left foot. Well, there's no way I can strike the ball like that. Every time I hear that, I always stop them. I'm like, it's not that you can't do it. You just are unable to do it right now. This is why we practice. And then they practice a couple times and they start getting closer. I'm like, see, you're already better than what you were doing 3 minutes ago. But I feel that we sometimes don't take the time to tell them that it's okay to not be able to do it right now. We have to take away the can't in the minds. And I think allowing themselves, for me, it's allowing them to see that it's okay to not be able to do it at the time, encourage them to see that they can do it and they are able to do it, is very important. Another aspect of being able to do that is what do they see on the side? Something that I forgot to mention at the beginning when I was introducing myself is I work at an all-female, a female-first soccer club, North Shore Girls Soccer. And when I first joined them, we were doing an overhaul of staff. And over the last 6 months, we have hired so many more female coaches or staff to be on the sidelines. And what a change that has been for just the perspective from where I stand to the parents looking on the sideline and telling me, to where the kids get to learn, look up and be like, I can do that. And reinforcing how they view themselves, part of it is also providing them with the perspective that, oh, right, I see this college player coaching me. I can do that because I can relate to that. And I've had so many parents over the last year come to me telling me that at 9, 10, 11, asking, Mom, why aren't you coaching? Mom, why is it? I mean, it's Coach Dan is great, but why are you not coaching? Or why are there just dads on the sideline? And they're right. They can't. It's hard to relate. When I was growing up, the same thing. I saw males on the sideline, but I didn't think too much of it. But when I first, as a 14-year-old soccer player, when I saw my first university player, I'm like, I can do that. I can relate to the female university player that's coaching me because she's made it. So why can't I? And at 9 years old, they're telling their moms, like, why aren't you coaching? I want to see, more. In their heads, it's simple. They want to see more females on the sideline. So we need to reinforce what is seen by them as well. And for me, I have spent a lot of time bringing in those females so that there are more female presence. And one of the things that I find it hard when I'm trying to bring more female presence is an environment. for those females. As a coach, going through all of the coaching courses and the environments, is it a safe environment for me to make mistakes? Because when I was growing up, going through coaching courses, it wasn't, not for me. I kept quiet. Most of my female colleagues did as well. We were scared to say a coaching point because we were unsure. And the display that we saw was not inviting. Is it a safe environment for competition, and not just for athletes, but for coaches? Like I'm in an environment that is very male dominant, and me making a coaching point among my male colleagues, it's taken a really long time for me to be comfortable and confident to do that. And it wasn't always like that. How do I create an environment where I can bring a female coach in among other male coaches and ensure that they also have an ability to make a coaching point, but not have their male colleagues just step right in front of them. And that's very important, because if I have a female coach who's making a coaching point super valid, and the next thing I have is a coach stepping in front, making a counterpoint on that, what the girls are seeing is, oh, the coaching point that she made, somebody else has already just kind of tapped it down, it's gone, we're moving on to the next thing. So we have to provide a safe environment for growth and a safe environment for competition. And it's very interesting how, for me, growing up, I did everything I can. I volunteered everywhere I can to get more coaching experience. We have other priorities, we have other jobs, and it seems like if we try to get a commitment right now, it's like all or none. You either have to commit as a head coach or you don't commit at all. And I think there has to be give and take. If we want more females on the sideline, I'm willing to take 3 assistant coaches and they want to come in once a week. I'll work with them. I've been known, this might be not very great at times, but to take 3 or 4 assistant coaches under my wing, because I want more female coaches to be able to see and be comfortable in an environment, learn, and then take that away and now be with the next set of group of teams or girls or boys, and be comfortable doing that. But I feel like we don't provide that opportunity enough, as clubs, as courses, and it's hard to balance all of the acts sometimes. Societal displays. This, I think, has been an ongoing topic all over the world, for equal opportunity for female sports. I'll tell you a story about very recent. I just got back from Mexico on Saturday, this past Saturday. Euros just started, CONCACAF just started. Everybody's the female, everything is qualifying for the World Cup right now in the female soccer world. And I'm walking down downtown. Bear with me here. PV, and as I walk down just a random bar, on the screen is the Mexican team playing. Random bar. The bar is absolutely empty. There's maybe one person in there, but on the big screen TV is the women's CONCACAF Mexico, can't remember who they were playing, game. Broad daylight. It's not 2 a.m. It is 5 p.m. And I saw that and I'm like, I am in Mexico. And instead of playing a replay of a game, of a male game, a baseball game, or another sport, they are playing a women's football game at 5 p.m. because their nation is playing to qualify for the World Cup. At least that's what I got out of that. I go for dinner, I go back to my resort, and there's a bar at the resort. And so I go down to the sports bar, and right in the big screen is our Canadian game playing. The bar is absolutely empty. Our game, unfortunately, in Mexico time was playing at 9 p.m. So I didn't even have to ask the guy to change the channel for me. I was in Mexico and they were playing our Canadian game in an empty bar. Not a replay of a Dodgers game or a Blue Jays game, not a hockey game, a rerun of a hockey game, not a replay of a Premier League or a Champions League game, but a women's CONCACAF game in Mexico. And we can't even play that on our regular program TV here in Canada and make that a priority. And as a coach and now a more mature, I'll still call myself a player and athlete, seeing that, it's like shocking. Can you imagine as a young player female athletes, 11, 12, 13 years old, trying to split the channels to find the Canadian women's game, who are Olympic champions and can't find the game. And they have to search on the internet, or they have to pay a subscription just to watch one game. Those are the displays that we are giving our females. And obviously this is not just happening with soccer, but it shocks me. What kind of role models, what kind of displays are we giving our younger generation? Anyways, that was a long rant. Coming back to this graph here, this is just a graph that I pulled out of a newsletter or a report that out in the States from Aspen Sports. They did a survey based on a high school, but you can kind of relate it to most club sports. These are why the top 5 reasons why girls play sports. The number one at 83% is that they're having fun. And then you go down and it's making friends and it's improving skills. None of it says that winning or want to be the best in the world, right? Like, we have to keep these things in mind when we provide and coach young females, because these are the reasons why they play. So we want to make sure that these are emphasized in our environments when we coach young females, so that we can provide a safe environment for them to grow in, a safe environment for them to compete in, and help them gain all the things that they are actually looking to gain. Okay, I've ranted a lot. Yes, I have the reference page. So for me, I probably kind of steered off course a bit, but I am very passionate about giving more opportunities to females in my world to either coach, to play. I'm not a referee, but if they want a referee, I will make it happen. But we need more of us to do that. We need to give more opportunities for them to grow, to be safe to grow, to ask questions, to challenge authority figures, me even, or our male counterparts, on why we do what we do. And if we don't provide that safe opportunity for them to do it at a young age, and we only tell them what to do, we're never going to grow and be able to have more of us involved. So I really, really hope that after all of my kind of ranting on over the last, I don't know how much time is already, but something kind of got through, and my passion for this has only grown, and I think it's going to keep growing. And I'm hoping that because I've climbed the ladder a little bit more over the last couple of years, that gives me more opportunities to provide those opportunities. So yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to change this view here. I have a page full of notes, so something got through. So that's a good sign. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And I have some questions. So I'm going to read through my random notes here.
Okay.
First of all, I didn't know you were a goalie, so that explains a little bit.
Yeah, I've calmed down a lot, okay? What they say about goalkeepers are true, but I've calmed down quite a bit.
Okay, I learned something new about you today. Also, what's your favorite kind of dog? Important question.
My ideal my ideal dog that I don't know if I will ever get because anyways, so let's go back to the question. It's a Husky Cross Shepherd.
Okay.
However, I don't know if I'll ever be able to get one because I'm all about, there's too many dogs out there that need adoption. So when I'm able to get a dog, which I will, maybe 10, I will be adopting.
Okay.
But yeah.
Good for you. And maybe you'll get lucky. Maybe you'll find that exact dog. You never know. For
me, it's just I want a dog that will go for hikes with me, and go for a run and do activities with me. That's why it has got to be a high energy dog because I'm kind of a high energy person.
I can see you with a corgi. It's perfect. Okay, back to the coaching part. I appreciate that you went through the different methodologies because I think it is so important. And I would agree that my experience has been very similar, that I grew up with command-based coaching, and I still see that. I think that's still the prominent type of coaching, at least at the youth level. I was just at an NHL coaches conference, and at that level, it is different. They're understanding that the players, especially the newer generation, want to know why. And in order to create buy-in, they need the why. But I do agree. I think our coaching courses still rely on command-based coaching. And it is what we're primarily seeing. And I guess historically, we tend to coach how we were coached, or if we hated how we were coached, we try and find something different.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's me. What I'm wondering is, so you work primarily with youth, but I know you also do some college work. So do you shift your coaching methodology based on age, or does it stay pretty consistent across?
That's a really good question, actually. So yes, I'm the assistant coach for Douglas College right now as well. And when we coach the youth, I'm trying to get them to think. At college, the understanding of the game is different. They understand the game. And so I wouldn't say it's more command style or more Q&A. I think it's more actually observation and feedback, and a bit of trial and error, only because it depends on the opponent. What style of game do they play? And we have to be able to change our style kind of a little bit to either defend it differently or attack differently. And when we're in season, our weekly practices is not like we have to do it this way. It's more of like, okay, this is what we saw from this team last time. This is what we observed as a team. What do we have on our team in terms of attributes that we can either counter with? So I would say, yes, it's different than when I'm coaching my youth players, but it's definitely not like still more command, and it is observation and feedback because the players are more knowledgeable and they understand the game better. So we're able to converse in a way and understand each other in a way where like, okay, this will not work or this will work. Let's try it this way and see how it goes.
So that was kind of my assumption, is like, I find with the youth level Q&A, it helps them build that game understanding, which now as they get older and they have the skill, they can actually use a trial and error. I'm wondering, do you, like, in those conversations, because like in coaching conversations, we're going to look at like, this is what we have, and this is what they're doing, this is how we can adapt. Are you actually involving the players in those conversations?
At practice, I would say yes. And at halftime talks, for sure. And I'm sure you as a coach, when you're in game, it is more of like, do it now, because there's just no opportunity, no time there's split second decisions, right? So if let's say, I would say yes in the moments when we can, no in the moments that we have to make a split second decision. The coach that I work with, he's great. I've learned a lot from him, and he's very open to discussion with me. So between him and I wouldn't say he won't, but he will discuss with me as an assistant coach. Okay, in the game, this is what we see, this is what we practice. It's not working. What can we do right now so that we don't concede, or keep conceding? How can we counter right away? And so those are the moments where we kind of give more command style, get higher, play it through here, use this player more, but it's not more at that level. I wouldn't say it's like you have to play this way. It's more of like midfielders, you need to get on the ball more. So the midfielders, either they try to find different spaces to be in. It's not like you have to get into this space kind of deal.
I think that kind of leads to the other question I had. It's because and I'm sure this is the same in kind of soccer, but the idea of like creating space for athlete creativity on field or on court or whatever. Do you find that using the Q&A or using the trial and error is creating more space for that creativity? Or are there other ways that you found that you're able to allow space for the athletes to be creative?
I would say, we're talking about youth, right?
At any level.
Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
So regardless of, when I'm with my youth, like kids, I find that we have, I'm sure we, in other sports, there's like a way to organize their session plans, right? We spend a lot of time to allow for that creativity to happen, but in a guided way. I would say, like, you give them the tools at the beginning, so teach them this, 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 and this, but then you give them an environment where they have to, that you add an opponent and they can try this, this, and this, or they can do something that they've learned or they've seen based on what they see at the situation. So, for example, we will teach a pullback, a turn move, a 1v1 move, and they'll practice it, and then we'll put them into a 1v1 situation. They're not, I don't tell them, you have to use the 1v1 move that we learned. Can you try it if the situation persists itself? However, that's the opportunity for them to kind of grow and learn and try something else. If they do a Maradona instead of the whatever I taught them, fantastic. Because those are the opportunities they get to see and learn and try something that's on their own. There's no, you have to do it that way. And I think we've gotten away from that for, over the years. And I've seen that change happen more and more. And even like right now, when I'm coaching my coaches and I tell them, yes, this is what you taught, this is what you would encourage them to do, but it's not the only thing that they can do. And it's interesting to see them step back a bit more and do less coaching. Actually, kids get more out of it if we coach less.
Yeah. That kind of comes back to the point of like, I'm glad you touched on kind of the skill acquisition aspect and the fact that we do need to create space for them to actually almost struggle through things. It's something that I always come up, like in hockey, we have skills coaches, and I always ask them like, so how much understanding of skill acquisition do you have? And the answer is generally like, what? And I think it's such valuable knowledge. Like if we actually understand how the brain processes skill development, there is this need to allow for like internal and external feedback without our voices. Like they need to actually be able to process. And then we also kind of almost need to explain to them, like, you're gonna fail. Like as we teach you something, you are going to fail because that's your brain's way of processing and creating feedback. Like that's just what happens. Like I always, when I teach a new skill, I tell the kids, I said, you're going to suck at first. Like it's going to suck and you're going to go do it in a game and it's going to suck. But as you do it, your brain's going to process, you're going to figure it out. But as coaches, we just want to step in and fix it because we want this like immediate gratification, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely, it's about our gratification. It has nothing to do with the kid. Because if you step in and you try to like, no, do it this way, do it this way. And what I find actually over the years is I've been with some great coaches. I've worked with some fantastic coaches and I worked with some fantastic parents who are teachers and or firefighters or whatever. And one of the biggest things that I see is if you're not able to break a skill down to the absolute basic physical literacy movement, you can't teach it. Because if I tell a coach just as simple as show me how to pass the ball, you've acquired that skill over 20 years. You have the coordination, the anticipation, that you know exactly what to do. But can you break it down step by step so that the kid who's never passed the ball be able to do it? And as a coach, just this past week we had our course, our youth life as a course, and one of the things that we talked about was relative age effect, and we were talking about the three things that we see kind of in athletes is how they cope, like coping strategies, how some will surge through, they'll push through, and others will struggle. What are the signs for all of them? And as a coach, when you're teaching something, whether it's a skill or tactical idea or whatever it is, can you identify those players and help them? Because how we help them in those different 3 stages will dictate how they move to the next step. So a kid who's coping, if we can't identify that or we don't see it and we don't help them, they can go into struggling instead of pushing through.
Mhm.
So it's very important that we provide them the time and space, but also help understand our players when to step in and when to just step back.
Yeah, I always think I used to teach preschool age, which is fantastic, but you get the kid that always has to go to the bathroom and you're like, oh, that kid is in struggle. But you're like, if you don't have that knowledge, you don't pick that up and you think either like there's something wrong with that kid or they just don't want to be here. The reality is it's probably too hard for them, right? So we need to adjust the environment so that kid can actually find a way to push through and enjoy being there.
Mhm.
Yeah. I also wanted to touch on like because you talked about we have the like technical skill, but then there's like the delay before they can actually perform the tactical. And I think so many people fail to understand that like when the kids are learning skills, their brain is actually so focused on execution of the skill that they can't actually look up, right? And that's why there's that pause. Like, so to actually be okay with the fact that like if they're performing the skill, that might be enough, right? Like the other part will come as they can actually perform that skill in automation. But if we like are constantly mad at them because they're not performing the technical or the tactical, then we're going to cause shutdown, right?
And it's funny because it works the other way around. Some kids, they understand the concept really quickly, and you can see them try, like they'll try the move, but for soccer, like just the prime example is like play it out wide. You can see the kid look, but because their first touch is like away from them, they can't actually physically play that ball.
Yeah.
But they've trained themselves, and they understand why they need to do it. And coaches step in and be like, okay, don't play that pass then. Well, no, you want them to play that pass. You've taught them that. That's what you've asked them to do. But now you're stepping in because their technical hasn't followed up with their tactical.
Yeah.
And in 2 years, that's going to be a problem. But if you let them make that mistake, technically, the technical will catch up with the tactical because they clearly understand, but they just haven't been able to skill acquisition what they need to do to perform the aspect that you need them to do. So it works both ways for sure, and it goes back down to patience. You have to give them the opportunity and time. And I think, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but us females, when we're younger, we aim to please, and we want to do everything right, but that's not possible. Even as adults, we don't do everything right. So why can we expect the kid to do everything right? So that's where it comes back to the safe environment for competition and growth. It has to give them that opportunity to do it, and we have to take a step back as coaches and be like, it's not about us.
That actually kind of brings me to another question I had in terms of, and you may have this experience, I don't know, but if there is a group of young girls that you've worked with up until as they've moved to the older age, and how, or if you've been able to almost coach the aim to please out of them. Because like, I think like a couple of years ago, I was coaching a U18 team, and I coach based on like habits rather than systems. And they were so like, but tell me what to do. Like, tell me what to do. And I'm like, you have to be able to read this situation. So I'm wondering, like, are you finding with starting with the younger girls, is it successfully moving with them as they move to the older ages?
Yeah, I have taken a couple of teams, but the most recent one that there were 2003s, so they would have just finished their first year university. I got them when they were 13, and so this team hadn't won a game in 2 years. They conceded like 60 goals and hadn't scored a goal, and they just needed they needed confidence. Their confidence was shot. But over the 4 years that I had them, I always told them, I am not playing a video game. I'm not here to be on my controller and be like, hey, move here, move here. It's about what you see. I already played the game myself. I've done it once. I'm on the sideline now. And as the years went by, as they gained more knowledge and confidence of the game and understanding the game and other skill, you could see them start playing. And that's when you you get moved away to closer to that college style coaching where it's trial and error, observation, feedback. Okay, what did you see? How can we make this better? And, there's still the skill acquisition part, because the competition gets better, game pace picks up. But the fact that you see them play the game more confidently and not look at the sideline for an instruction, that's huge. Because going in the club now, I see my older teams, some of them, they freeze when they receive the ball because the coach hasn't given them an instruction. But no fault to the coach or the player, they just haven't been given they don't know. They don't know any better. They, as you mentioned before, you coach the way you were coached. And those coaches have never probably been given that opportunity to learn something else because they're volunteers. They do what they remember them had been done for them. So definitely as they get more confident skill, and you can see them relying less on looking at the sideline and kind of executing what they see, which is, from my point of view, very successful for a player. And going into a life skill, they're able to think for themselves and challenge themselves that way. So
yeah, and I think that's the ultimate goal. Like I think about myself as a player. I'm like, I understand the game so much more now as a coach, and I'm like, I wish I had that understanding and the freedom to be adaptable when I was actually playing, because I think I would have been a lot more successful if I actually understood what was happening.
Oh, totally. I tell everybody I'm a much better player now than I am. What? Oh God, how many years ago? 10,
Nobody needs to know.
10 years ago. I see the game different. I'm sure you do too. You just see the game differently, and it's funny because I don't know about hockey, but like when we played when I was younger and we played older women's teams, you come out, you're like, okay, we're younger, we should be able to play around them, but they play a different style. They're calm. And I now am on the other side, and I'm like, the game has slowed down in my mind because you can pretty much anticipate and predict some movements, right? Because you've seen the game so much, and you're like, yep, and you're smooth, and it just makes everything go so much easier. And yeah, definitely wish I had coached more when I was younger. I'd be much a better player, but here we are.
Yeah, it's funny because like I remember at university we used to play this team of like 80-year-old men, and we're always like, why, how, like, but their skill set was just like so crisp. But yeah, the game, they just slowed the game down so much. I have one final question, and I'm glad you brought up the females in the coaching aspect, because this is a problem we have in hockey as well. Is like we have so many moms and they're eager to help, but they're afraid to actually get on the ice because they're afraid of making a mistake. They're afraid of, not being respected by the men. And they're just like craving this knowledge of like, how do I teach this skill? Like, how do I get better at this? So they feel competent in the knowledge so that they can give feedback. And I'm wondering, like, are there ways that you are tackling that with your female coaches?
Okay, so at the club that we're at, we're actually with my new boss, we're having a lot of coaching education courses. But one of the things that I will be doing a lot of next year is that first this year when I picked my coaches, I made sure there was a female coach, even if it's part-time. That's the first thing is, can you commit just to be on the sideline? If you have no experience, but you want to help, absolutely. I'm getting everybody on board. That's my first step is like, you have to get them on board first. If you don't get them on board, you can't get them to do anything. Like you can't make that change. So I will take any female coach who wants to coach. And even if it's like once a week, and you don't know any, that's fine. I will be there. So, and right now, next year going forward, I will be working with the coaches at practices. So I'll take all the idea is to take all the head coaches. I'll work with them for half an hour. They'll go back with their team. I'll take all the assistant coaches. I'll work with them for half an hour. And then we go back to the team and they'll work together. And I oversee 70 teams. I can't physically be with every team all the time. So the only way to make impact and change is to work with the coaches. And so I'm going to be spending a lot more time working with my coaches and not necessarily teaching them like, this is the session that you need to run, but also teaching them things that we've been talking about. You need step back, coach less, is actually coaching more and providing the opportunities for more females to come out and learn that. I'm sure you've gone through this. So I had to piecemeal everything together. Coaching, we made it work, right? And not everybody can do that. Like, people have full-time jobs, and so like I said, I think my biggest thing right now is to just provide any opportunity and every opportunity to bring on a female staff as much as I can. And I actually I got 2 of my college players to come coach our spring stuff with me, and I want to bring more of them in because they're the players that kids want to look up to. They know their stuff, but they're now given an opportunity to teach it back to the kids. Kids get to look up to them, and it's perfect. And I think and then we've got a junior coach program at our club, where our U17s, 18s are assigned to a minis team, and they work with them. We've got lots of opportunities at the club for more female coaches, and I am very proud to be a part of that club because we create those opportunities, and we definitely thrive on female coaches and staff. So
that's fantastic, and I'm grateful to hear that it's happening. And I will likely call you and be like, hey, let's talk and figure out how we do this elsewhere, because I think it needs to happen. And I hear from all of these other, just like moms, they're like, I want to be involved too, right? So creating that safe environment where they feel safe to do so. Yeah. Thank you so much.
no, thank you for having me. It's been great. Like, I can't believe I'm sitting here amongst a panel of other fantastic and wonderful women, and here I am. I know, a couple of years ago, yeah, you asked me if I was gonna, like, oh my gosh, like, no way. And this is an honor. So I really appreciate the opportunity, and kind of getting to know everybody else too.
Yeah, well, I am so grateful that you took the time.